All right. Well, I want to welcome everyone to our regular meeting number 2025-33. It is Tuesday, December 2nd at 2025, and the time is now 5 p.m. So again, I will be sitting in tonight, given that President Muntean is out of the country, and I've asked Councilor Dixon to sit here and kind of help facilitate the meeting and make sure we're running everything on time and catching everybody online. So with that, we'll go ahead and start out with roll call.
Gail Gary.
Here.
Steve Muntean is absent. Steph.
Here.
Dave Barnes.
Here.
Michael Bitchin.
Here.
Amy Dixon.
Here.
And Brian Swinton.
Here.
Okay. And I'll just take the opportunity to remind everybody, and again, for anybody who happens to be listening in online, that we do take public comment at 2 different times during our meeting. We take general public comment at 6 p.m. or after the city manager report, whichever comes first. And then if there are any comments that someone would like to make that are specific to an agenda item, we take public comment at that time. And again, we respectfully request that everyone who wants to make a public comment, please introduce yourself and limit your comments to 3 minutes so we can make sure that we hear from everyone. So with that, why don't we go ahead and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Right. Our first agenda item is to adjourn and to reconvene as the Steamboat Springs Redevelopment Authority. So I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second. All right. So we have a motion by Councilor Swintek. We have a second by Councilor Bacino. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Okay. All right. Kim, you want to walk us through the next agenda item?
Kim Weber, SSRA, Steamboat Springs Redevelopment Authority Treasurer. So in front of you tonight is a resolution to approve an additional budget appropriation for the Steamboat Springs Redevelopment Authority for $70,733 for 2025. As part of issuing tax-exempt debt, all tax-exempt organizations, the City of Steamboat Springs, the Steamboat Springs Redevelopment Authority, must comply with federal arbitrage regulations. And what that means is the IRS doesn't want you issuing tax-exempt debt and then investing it and making more money in your investment income than you're paying in interest. In 2020, we refinanced SSRA debt and got a really low interest rate at 1.26%. We didn't spend those funds right away within that 5 years, and we earned more in interest revenue than we spent in the debt service payments. So we are required to do an arbitrage rebate compliance every 5 years, which we did 2025, and we owe the IRS $70,000. It sounds like a bad thing, but we were able to maximize our interest earnings. So we need to refund that $70,000. So we're asking the board to appropriate that money in 2025 so we can pay it to the IRS.
All right. Thank you, Kim. Are there questions for Kim? All right. Seeing no questions, is there anyone that would like to make a public comment on this agenda item? If there's anybody online that would like to make a public comment, please raise your hand. All right. We're not seeing anybody online, nor are we seeing anybody in the audience that would like to make a public comment. So let's bring it back to council for a discussion or a motion.
Move to approve.
Second. Okay, we've got a motion by Councilor Swintek and we have a second by Councilor Dixon. Again, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Not seeing any, that passes unanimously. All right, let's go ahead and I'll take a motion to adjourn as our role of SSRA and to reconvene in our regular meeting number 2025-33.
So moved. Second.
All right, we have a motion by Councilor Swintek. We have a second by Councilor Bacino. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, all right. So we'll roll right into our next agenda item, which is council reports. Who'd like to start?
I'll start. First, attended Main Street Steamboat meeting this morning, and they just wanted to pass along their thanks for the Santa House and the promenade out front, and said it worked great, said it felt cozier and nicer, and even though they had to put Santa Claus on top of the roof because he couldn't be in the ladder with the thunderstorm going on. So just want to let everybody know that. And then, so we're going to bring up, this is just for discussion. You guys got my email earlier about our meeting on YVHA with the joint county commissioners next week. And just was wondering if we wanted to discuss these as a city council before getting into it with the county commissioners, and what points might be relative with the IGA. And Dan can probably speak to those.
Okay, and maybe, and typically what we'll do is, we'll kind of pin in that. We'll go through council reports, and then to the extent that we want to have a discussion on that, we'll do that at the end.
Okay.
Other council reports?
I don't have a report today.
Nope, nothing from me.
Anything? While you're thinking, I'll go ahead. How about that? So a couple of administrative items. So I think we brought it up last week that Commissioner Macy's was asking council to submit a letter to the PUC regarding the closure of the Hayden Station power plant. So hopefully everybody had a chance to take a look at that email, and there is an attached letter. So is everybody okay with going ahead and instructing staff to put the letter on letterhead, and we'll sign it and send it off? Can I see a thumbs up?
Yes, I was going to speak to that in my city manager's report.
Okay.
And the only thing that I would add is that we did receive the template, which we will use. We're going to make some revisions to that. Our recommendation would be to include some language in there about, in their request, they reference some water rights as part of their appeal. And that does affect ours, since we do have water rights out of Steamboat Lake. So we want to include a paragraph referencing those water rights and the importance of those water rights to the city's overall portfolio. So you will see that additional paragraph come to you. So don't be surprised when you see that additional language in there. We think that's an important addition to that letter.
Okay, I mean, I think that makes sense. Everybody comfortable with that? And it's not contradictory to what the county's asking for, right? It
is not. It was, not entirely sure they were completely clear on sort of what they were asking when they asked that. But we just want to make sure we clarify that we do have water rights, and those are important to us.
Okay, great. Okay. We do have the council retreat scheduled, and I believe, and Council President Montine did send out a couple of notes regarding that. One is asking everybody to block your calendar till 4 p.m. in case we need to run over. So hopefully everybody is able to accommodate that request. And then secondly, in order to maybe try to facilitate a little faster review, or kind of, I'll just say faster review of our boards and commissions, that asking everybody to put in kind of their top 3, and then we can start the discussion at that point.
Hash it out.
Exactly. Okay. And then I think the other question is, I think there are a couple of other boards there, or like Hallison Hill User Group, right? That Councilor Bacino and I sit on, and let's make sure that we capture all of those things on the board and commissions list as well, so that we know kind of what we have full coverage on. And I think there might be 1 or 2 other, like maybe we'll add the housing subcommittee. I don't know if that's on that list or not, but making sure that we've got coverage, and we can
We do it informally, but it
Right.
should be listed on there because we're still active doing it. It's a good
Right.
idea.
Right, and I know there's been a request, I think also from CMC, which we've gone back and forth on, in terms of, they've got a community kind of advisory group. So that may be something we want to talk about as well.
Who owns that master list?
Staff, I think either Julie,
Yeah, we
Boards of-
collectively, between clerk and Teresa Long, my administrative assistant, holds that, so.
May I propose that if you have additional boards, that we pass it over to Julie, for that, like the CMC?
Well, but I want to push back on this because this is one of the things that we're starting to, we always want to creep and increase the list. So no, I would like this to be a discussion in the goal setting, not sending this list ahead of time because that preemptively assumes we want this on the list. And that's a discussion that needs to be had.
I'm fine with that. I mean, I think you can have that discussion either way, right?
Agreed.
So, but maybe let's,
You have the
We'll get
current
the
list.
list.
And we'll make sure that we, informally have the list of the other ones, and then you can have a discussion as to whether you want to continue with them or not.
right,
It
that we
wasn't-
know exist.
Yeah, it wasn't about adding to it. It was basically, these are the ones that we're going to be discussing.
Perfect. Okay. All right. So we'll keep an informal list of what we know is out there so we can have a comprehensive conversation about does it make sense or not. And then finally, I think, Tom, you sent out an email. We do have 4 complimentary tickets to the Winter Sports Club's Celebration of Champions this Friday. And this is the Winter Sports Club's annual fundraiser for their scholarship program. So if, I think there's 4 tickets. So if anybody's interested in using those tickets, let Tom know. And I think just as a point of reference, I asked about this last year. There were 495 of the 1,156 total athletes that received scholarships totaling around $609,000. So this is, a big event for the Winter Sports Club in terms of trying to make sure that there's enough monies for scholarships so that this can be an, inclusive program. So
And we did get the notification of that a little bit late. They apologized, but if you are interested, let me know because I need to give them the names of the attendees by tomorrow,
oh, okay.
since the event is Friday and there'll be name tags and that kind of thing.
Well, that's why you sent it out. What day is that?
It's Friday.
Friday
Friday night at the Grand.
starts at, I think, 5:30 to 7:30.
Yep.
And then there's a plated dinner and beyond. Okay.
Yeah. Let me find out. I'll text my wife.
Right? Okay. All right. So let's go back to you, Counselor Barnes, in terms of hopefully everybody got a copy of the rainbow item. If you didn't see it in terms of the email, have it now. We all have it now. And there is, for anybody in the audience that would like to follow along, this is on the back shelf behind the stairs and inside the double doors. So maybe to the extent that not everybody has had the opportunity to see your email, if you, again, kind of focus on, kind of summarize your comments.
Okay, so there's some lengthier points in there that won't be applicable to the joint meeting next week, but just some food for thought. But some of the things that are coming up, is we're going to be appointing new board members or interviewing new board members on the 16th. So in this upcoming meeting, whether or not to downsize the board and board members, and having this discussion among the city before we get in the co-meeting with the, Routt County Commissioners. So we either have a chance to discuss on our own. Also, the possibility of term limits for folks that are sitting on the board, relative point. And then the appointees having certain qualifications. For existing board members have been asking for more qualifications of these interviewees, whether or not we want to define those, or if that's relevant, prior to talking to the Routt County Board of Commissioners. I think that was my purpose in sort of bringing some of the YVHA stuff up, is to have the conversation before it was, brought in between the county commissioners from the city standpoint.
And maybe just to ground our discussion too, I mean, I think one of the things we had talked about in terms of having this on the agenda for the work session with the county commissioners was really to look at the IGA and to have Dan walk us through in terms of what does the IGA say about the authority of the county, the authority of the city, right? In terms of what's our authority as it relates, right, to the board, as well as talk about, to your point, what the IGA says about the number of people serving on the board, qualifications. I don't know, Dan, what else were you, as you have you had, as you're looking at the IGA, were you going to be bringing up?
Just the basic organizational principles of the IGA. Board members, how they're appointed, how decision-making gets made and so forth. It's not going to be a very long report. It's a relatively simple document. And so it won't be a very long report. In terms of I don't know, what is it? 8 bullet points that Councilmember Barnes has in this rainbow. I could certainly reference those if necessary. Generally speaking, I would say with the exception of the property tax issue, which we don't have much control over, everything else, one way or another, could be addressed with the agreement of the county.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had a question. So 6, 7, and 8. To me, that's not our job. Am I wrong?
I would say that is not your direct responsibility given the current terms of the IGA. However, those terms could be changed.
So I guess to direct to you, Councilor Barnes, that's my concern is I understand the passion around this topic. I agree with discussing 1, 2, 4, 5, but expanding boundaries and especially 6, 7, and 8, that's getting into the how to do this. And we are not the Housing Authority Board. We aren't running. I don't want to run the Housing Authority. We have enough that we need to cover. So personally, I don't think it's beneficial for us to be raising 6, 7, and 8. I don't think that that's a conversation that's valuable for us to have. It just would burn time. I agree with 1, 2, and 4, and 5. I think that makes sense. The reason why I keep skipping 3 is I'm almost positive the other South Route and North Route is looking at making their own housing authority. So, and I think that would have to go to a vote. So I think 3 is just not worth talking about. But that's my concern, especially 6, 7, and 8, is that's treading into the running the housing authority, and we do not run the housing authority.
But we certainly would be a beneficiary of the taxes of housing authority properties.
Well, and
Right, but
I mean, if the housing authority owns 2% of a project, simply to take it off the tax rolls, the developer or somebody, the owner of the property, is getting that tax benefit. We don't see that because we don't see the pro forma. Now, they could simply say that's going to raise rents in that property.
so I will respond to your statement by asking you a question. What do you see your job as?
Well, we're going to be meeting on the IGA, so setting these things up and at least having the board of directors be directed on it, I think is part of our job with the IGA to define these things.
Yeah, I mean, let me propose something, right? I mean, I think, from the perspective of, as you said, kind of when we talk about, I think it's certainly ripe for conversation next week in terms of as we go into it, in terms of informing from a council perspective, what you want the 3 of us who are interviewing the applicants to take into consideration, right? And we know, we've asked Jason for a list of what the need is, as well as asking for kind of the expertise of people that are on the board. So there's information in terms of, are there, potential gaps that, the interviewee, that as we interview people need to be taken into consideration. But I think to the extent that we're talking about the IGA, it would seem to me that it's whether either we kick that off to having a council conversation at our council retreat about what is the appetite of council in terms of, do we want to propose to the county that we should review and maybe relook at the IGA? So
The topic really is treading into, do we want to get into the business of affordable housing? I mean, that's really what Dave is talking about, is managing a housing authority. Do we want to do that? Maybe that's a conversation that's worth having at goal setting, but that is the conversation. It's not about 2% in tax bases. It's, do we want to get in the housing business? Because that's where this path leads.
I don't feel like that's it. I think it's being a good steward of the people's money and the fact that we are directed to monitor the housing authority. And
We're directed we
we're
are
giving
not
10 we just
directed
gave
to
them
manage the
$10
housing
of
authority.
taxpayer money. And
We
to
are not-
clarify, I don't think we need to have this conversation now.
Right,
I
yeah.
think it's pertinent about the board makeup and whether, we want to have that discussion with the county about downsizing the board. As per the IGA, it's a minimum of 7, it's a max of 15. We have 15 on the board now. We have the ability to pare it down, but as I've,
You can see all this.
what's that?
You see all this in your
I would
notes.
make the suggestion that 1, 2, 4, and 5 seem to be a consensus, at least for me, and they did make common sense. Maybe not for everybody, but if we had some of those points to at least in Dan's report that it came out of council, because all we're trying to do is have a work session and bring this up at an IGA discussion with the county. I don't know what harm, none of this can happen.
Well,
You know?
May I make a comment to that?
Sure, sure.
So, being part of the interview committee, we have had conversations that we need to look at all of our committees. So this feels like we're just picking on the housing authority, and we do, it's a rotating board, so we will be doing interviews next year as well, every year. We talked about this with the golf committee. We don't have term limits. I find that a problem for that committee in particular. I would really like to look at best practices. I've served on multiple boards, and I've never been on a board with less than 9 people, unless it was a really small local board, not building multi-million-dollar projects. So I think we have to have a larger conversation. I agree, but I think it should be across all of our boards and committees, and not just focusing on housing authority.
The only
That's
thing
where I stand.
I would point out, you're exactly right. It is a larger conversation. This is the one opportunity that we're bringing it up with the county, though, where this is the only board that we appoint with the county, whereas the other stuff's within our jurisdiction and ourselves. We can actually make those decisions down the road. I don't know if this is setting a precedence, and we want to avoid that, but having the conversation at least with the county gives us the opportunity that we may not have for another year.
and just a point of clarification, Dan, I mean, on term limits, is that an IGA question? Or a bylaws?
I believe that could be accomplished in a couple of different ways. The Housing Authority could probably hold its own election.
And can you
Say
speak
that, I can't hear you.
into the mic?
The Housing Authority probably could hold its own election on whether or not to have term limits. They may be subject to the constitutional term limits provisions that currently exist. That I am not sure of. I haven't looked into that issue. So the term limits issue could be addressed in several ways.
But is it worth having the conversation with the county is the point?
Oh, well, I think that anything that you want to do vis-a-vis the Housing Authority and how it operates, other than the council's vote on appointments, anything else needs to be done jointly with the county.
Exactly.
This is not our only county meeting.
Right.
And we are not going to make any changes that will impact the interview process coming up. Like, we won't. So I feel like I appreciate it for sure. I think there's some good points, but it feels very rushed. And I feel like we have to have a cohesive plan that we all somewhat can agree to come to the county with. Otherwise, we will be bickering in front of the county commissioners around this. And that's not what we want to do.
That was what I was trying to avoid.
Yeah. I think we need to have a bigger conversation.
So is your recommendation that on all of these that is it will of council to wait till to talk about this at our retreat?
No?
I mean, I think
But you mean to have a larger conversation about boards, term limits and things like that at a larger date at the retreat? The retreat's maybe full. I don't know how big that calendar is, but that would be a point to talk about that for sure.
But my opinion is, I do think that this is worth having a conversation with the county commissioners, because this board is not like the golf commission. A suboptimal golf committee is not going to have the level of impact that a suboptimal housing authority board will have. And I do think that these are valuable conversations to be had. I just think it's really important for us to not tread into the gray area where you have one opinion and I have another. Believe me, it will just not be constructive. So that's why I think, and Michael said this as well, like 1, 2, 4, and 5, they are concrete. Board term limits, discuss that. What should the size of the board be? What skills are needed? Those are conversations that I do think is important to have with the county commissioners.
Well, I do think,
I think that bringing those topics up are, because this is really important.
I would throw in there that 5 is actually also a how you're directing the board of how to do something.
Yeah.
And
It's an interesting aspect when you write, and thank you, David, for having these, become the best partner to tenants in the field of property management. And to me, that may not necessarily be, I don't know what that looks like, but honestly, as the county, as a city councilman, we hear all the complaints from the tenants and we don't have any control over it. So the question is, how do we become a best partner for those people who look to county commissioners and city council when things aren't getting done? And that's where I think the best partner comes up to for the tenants. Is that a role? I don't necessarily think so, but we have to address the fact that when we as council are getting emails and stuff regarding this, is that, do we just say, I'm sorry, go talk to the housing authority, there's nothing we can do?
No, we have a board member on, as part of council, and we have
Absolutely.
that board member take it to
Exactly.
that board.
And that may be all we need to make sure we make a point of.
So it's basically
Number 5,
So it's basically making sure our representatives on those committees are
are
good
vocal.
and
Perfect.
And Dan, I guess I'd like to request if you can give clarity or be prepared to provide clarity on Tuesday regarding the issue of term limits.
I will do some digging. It's not clear to me that, well, anyway, I'll do some digging.
Say again?
Do some digging. As appointed members, I don't think they're subject to constitutional term limits. What's possible. So it's probably more of an IGA or board decision.
Do we want to take kind of a general straw? I mean, this one seems to be kind of the most contentious in terms of term limits for board members. Is there a council position on?
I guess I would also add that this would be an unusual context for term limits. I mean, term limits usually are a restriction on the ability of the voters to elect officials, and the Housing Authority board members are not elected. They're appointed by you in the county.
I mean, every 3 years they get a reappointment, so they have a chance to be not appointed.
Exactly, and it's a joint appointment. So if a council doesn't wish to appoint someone, they don't have to. So I guess I would question what would the purpose of term limits be, other than to tie the hands of the council that would want to appoint someone.
Good point.
So my opinion is 1, 2, and 4 do keep on coming up. And so I think we should just start that discussion. I think any changes at this point in time within 2 weeks would be very rushed and is not something I feel is doable. And I think would just create more problems than it solves. But we should start that discussion around 1, 2, and 4. And because people have been bringing it up, and this is, so let's bring it onto the table and let's have that, start that discussion.
To be fair, this is the first time I've heard anyone say they should have term limits. So
It actually came up even in the last, I sat through last YVHA meeting and
so
people,
the housing authority itself has talked about it.
I think there was some people talking about, yeah.
Okay.
Well, and I do think it would be good to get clarity from Dan in terms, and absolutely if we're talking about the IGA, this is a process. If we're talking about amending the IGA, it's about, is there an appetite on either council and or the county to actually look at this, right? And if so, what's the process? And I do think I agree with Councilor Dixon from the perspective of term limits. I mean, are we going to look at them for all of our boards and commissions?
This may be the conversation that we have with the county commissioners.
I would also suggest that if you're having a joint meeting with the county and the county attorney is not there, that I shouldn't be giving legal advice to you that also would apply to the county on anything that's kind of controversial or, in dispute. So I would hesitate to wade into any kind of questionable issues about, what can or cannot happen without the county having had an opportunity to think about this and talk to their attorney.
Well, we can certainly give a heads up to Jay and to Commissioner Macy's, but I mean, I totally understand that if you and the county attorney believe that you need to have more time to do research, that we need to make sure that happens and see if there's even a consensus amongst the two bodies that we want to pursue that.
I mean, I would very much want to avoid being in disagreement with the county attorney on something. I don't think that helps anyone.
No. Well, I think I'm hearing that there's a majority of council that is interested in having the conversation about term limits.
Yes.
I could go along with that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm, as I say, I think there's broader ramifications. Okay,
We can just have the conversation.
so we'll give
Conversation.
the county a heads up that we, want to talk about 1, 2, and 4. And again, we have asked for, and we'll get the basic information on the, what the expertise of the existing board members and, with the people rolling off, what the gaps are. So that, again, to the point of specific qualifications, we have a clear sense of what is needed.
Yeah, I'd like to add a clarification of number 4. And the number for the people listening, number 4 is basically that all new appointees have specific qualifications in development and finance. The discussion that the board, last board meeting at YVHA, they were having is really not so much about what the qualifications, well, it is qualifications, is basically moving from a working board, which YVHA is today, is a working board versus bringing those board members and those qualifications on staff. And so that's where the question comes in between what type of board do you want? And is it time to, make some modifications in that area? So I just want to be clear that, when we talk about number 4, it's coming, more about, what is YVHA, version 2?
Right, and is it,
I don't think that has anything to do with it. It's more we need to make sure that we have people that fill in the gaps that are on the board. Whether or not they're doing work, I don't care. We just need them to be knowledgeable in those the gaps that the board
It's
currently doesn't have.
oversight.
Yeah.
Just want to appoint people to have oversight and not all in one area of finance. We need development and these other areas. So it's not a bad argument because we want a balanced board that's overseeing the housing authority. Not doing the work, overseeing the work.
Not having a housing authority overseeing its board.
Correct. Exactly. Not have exactly, a housing authority overseeing the board. Having a strong board is what I think we're all looking for.
Mhm. Okay, any final comments?
No.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Anything else on the council reports?
Well, yeah, I mean, this kind of chaps me, your utility fund thing. The pride in me wants to speak to this because you're writing
Bring
in
it up on our
here,
agendas.
but this is public now, and you've written in with a line saying, I have these opinions and you're doing this wrong, but I don't have a chance to defend myself. This is a pride thing, an ego thing for me. So I want to discuss one because you've made it public and you have brought it up now. So I need you to explain what you're talking about so we can have a discussion.
Well, and the thought was, I think, exactly.
I
we're
understand
gonna
that, but
discuss
this is a
yeah.
shit sandwich that's been plopped on my lap. So
We're going to talk about, how, is it okay? We can talk about it now, or we can talk, this issue is scheduled on the agenda for December 16th.
that's
So-
great, but like
No,
from
no,
an
no,
ego
no.
point of view, I don't like how this sits with me. I
Okay.
will just say that bluntly.
No, but we're going to talk about it either as part of agenda review, right? We'll have this conversation when we talk
Okay.
about December 16th, or we can have the conversation now.
And
We're gonna
have the
it doesn't
conversation.
matter.
That's fine.
Gender review.
Yeah, because that seems like that's the more appropriate place because we need clarity on, we've got this as an agenda item.
Okay.
So we'll talk, so, but no, we are going to talk about this, Counselor Swintek.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So,
I have one more.
Perfect.
Item. So we did get a public comment from a bill passed that Councilman Barnes did respond to a portion of that. But it did come in, Bill was actually asking and questioning how we were using SCR funds for the Campbell purchase and in terms of how do we justify that? Can we just make, a comment about how did we justify SCR funds for the Campbell project?
I wonder if, I was going to say President Gary, but Gary, if you can describe the process we use for responding to emails that come in. Because I think because we don't respond to them at the dais generally. It's more about staff will generally respond or if we respond, but maybe you could describe that. That might be helpful.
Yes, all right. I mean, exactly. I mean, typically, right, if we do, right, I mean, if we do have emails that come in from council, we typically direct them to staff. I think this one might be a little bit different, right, in the sense that it sounds like you're wanting Dan to weigh in specifically on this. And so typically, right, if we respond to a constituent, you typically don't respond to all of council. Again, it's just, but make sure that Heather, we're copying Heather on any sort of responses so that it that it gets tracked and documented. Again, we just don't want to inadvertently get into a council, kind of what could be appear to be a council discussion over an email.
Serial meeting is when we're kind of copying, replying all. We do want to avoid doing that, replying all, but maybe one other person or something like that, have some accountability, has some value. I think that what you're leaning toward as a new council member, and I totally share this with you as well, and if I could just put some words in there, is that this email came direct to the decision makers who made the decision. And it's really not a staff level. The guy was, the email was responding to the ones that made the decision. It has nothing to do with staff. It was the fact that where is our justification for that? So some of these emails can't be responded by staff because they're directed toward, why did you make this decision? And so in that sense, I could see the nudge to want to be able to say, well, I based upon the information I know, I think it was a great idea, and leave it at that, right? And so if there's more detail that needs to go into the why, that would be a one-on-one call that you can meet with them and talk to them about. Because and everyone here can meet with any constituent on things except land use, but you can talk about anything. Give him your number, talk to him, tell him why you came up with it, maybe some new information that you have that he doesn't have. He'd see it from that perspective. But let's not get into an email discussion, because that's not, even though you're trying to share information because someone responded and how you feel, it turns into a serial meeting, and that's where we have some laws that we don't want to create. Is that fair?
I didn't send the email.
No, I know. I was looking at you, but in general, that's kind of the way it goes. But I remember doing the same thing. So I'm just saying. But
Yeah, and if you want, and I think Councilor Chino makes a good point. There's some things that are very clear in terms of staff responding, about certain things that are kind of more within the operational aspect. And then to Councilor Chino's point, there is when it's a policy and a policy decision. But to the extent that if you have questions, staff is here to answer, to help you, if there's, kind of questions in terms of the decision that was made and the justification for the decision, or the authority to make the decision. That I think is a ripe question, offline. That clear as mud?
That's clear as mud.
Can follow up with Dan.
Yeah, I can follow with Dan.
Perfect. Good. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. All right. Well, we will go into our agenda review. So our next meeting is December 9th, and that is a work session. Although, as we've talked about before the work session, we do have our joint meeting with the Routt County Commissioners. We'll get the childcare update, and as we talked about, we'll talk about the Yampa Valley Housing Authority, IGA, and questions that are specific to the upcoming interviews. And then in terms of our work session, we have the long-awaited, anticipated IZ linkage feasibility study update. We will have the consultants who will be joining us to talk us through that. And then we'll also have a conversation about the STR tax fund rolling solicitation process. Any questions on that? Or additional information anybody wants? Okay, and then I think it's pretty straightforward. Then we move into December 16th. And this is where we do have the agenda item 10 is the stormwater utility formation. So I think this is where it's ripe for the conversation that Councilor Barnes brought up. But before we do that, Tom, do you want to set the stage when we talk about the stormwater utility formation, what is the scope of this agenda item?
Yeah, I'd like to have John Schneider come down and speak to this. We had our presentation to you on the 18th, presented the information. We wanted to sort of separate it, give you some time to think about it, and then come back with specific direction from council to say, yes, we want to move forward, or no, we don't. And what moving forward means is what I would like John to speak to.
Sure. John Snyder, Public Works Director. So the motion that you'll be considering on the 16th does not create the stormwater utility. What it does is it authorizes staff to move forward with the next phase, which will take the majority of 2026 to do. So this next phase is when we're going to be doing extensive public outreach. We'll be hiring a consultant to help us figure out the specifics behind it. And then ultimately, if we still move forward, it would result in the creation of an ordinance that you would consider hopefully by the end of 2026. And it's that ordinance that would ultimately create the stormwater utility. So we're still a ways off.
And I think one of the other questions was, is there an open house scheduled?
Yeah, the first one's scheduled for December 15th. And then we'll certainly have an extensive public outreach through all sorts of means next year.
John, where is that open house?
I don't know, but I'll email you.
And then we have phase 2 funded in the 2026 budget. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yes, that's correct. So we have $150,000 appropriated for a consultant to help us with the specifics of the formation, but we won't move forward with that unless your motion passes on the 16th. The money's there, but again, we thought a certain level of commitment would be in order before we move forward.
And then
When would you expect the formation to be complete?
Hopefully by the end of 2026.
So the formation would be at that.
Yeah. Yep. So, and ultimately it would be city council that gives the final approval.
And then, John, can you speak a little bit to the public engagement process, how you see that moving forward?
The consultant will help us with that, but it will involve open houses, website, social media, kind of whatever we can think of that gets people engaged. I think we'll probably do some targeted outreach as well, especially to some of the larger property owners. Open house will take place here at City Hall, first floor.
What time?
I think 5:15, but I'm not
On
positive.
the spot.
Yeah.
You can forward it to us. Don't worry.
Good people behind the scenes here working on floors.
Okay. All right. Councilor Barnes, is there other things you'd like to bring up? Does that answer your questions?
It does answer the question. It felt to me like we were making a decision that was going to be more or less carved in stone on the 16th.
Right. Yeah.
So what frustrates me with this is these are not decisions that any of us take lightly. This has been a conversation that we've had on council since I've been on, and it's 2 years in the making. It is slow. It has been happening. You have a very valid point, which is, how do we make it clear what we do? This is a perfect example of the minutia that we work on that has an impact and we are working on for a long time. If you have ideas, constructive ideas on how to make that more clear to the community, other than in the last 10 months that people are involved, I'd love to hear it. But this just doesn't sit right with me, because it's like as if we just decided right now we're going to do this, and it's not. It has been in the works, and that's a great example of, like, you've come in here and you realize we're doing this. So how do we get people to be aware if that is a gap that we have, which I agree.
Right, and that was the first disclaimer I put in there, was I know you guys have spent a lot of time on this, and being new into the process, it just feels like it's really rushed into the community, and nobody that I've talked to in the community even understands what it is or what we're doing. So
That's a fact. So let's go to the solutions. So what is the solution to that? That's what I'm asking you.
well, my solution was to make sure that it wasn't going to be carved in stone on the 16th. that was,
That's not, I mean, it's implied that this is all happening behind the scenes and behind the curtain, and I'm asking, how do we make it more
not
clear?
implied at all. I'm just
Well, and I think
saying
this goes to a systemic issue that I think I would love us to talk about at our council retreat, which is how, community engagement and how do we make sure, right, that we are communicating out and that we are getting robust public input.
I just ask for solutions rather than pointing out the facts, because I don't need anybody else to remind me that no one knows what's going on here. We're all keenly aware of it. So just please, when we come and have these conversations, I would love your thoughts on solutions. That's all. Thanks.
And just to be clear that it was very intentional to go through the first phase of this feasibility technical study before we really started to engage the community, because we needed to give them the information that you all now have in terms of how much is it going to cost, who's it apply, how do we calculate the stormwater utility. We needed to get all of that information before we go out to the public. Now that we have that information, we can go out to the public and say, here's the information. Please give us your feedback. And things will be adjusted as a result of that community engagement. But this is an example of a lot of work needed to be done before we really started to engage the public in terms of feedback.
I see this also in not in a negative way, just as a learning curve. So when we talked about this was on our community reports and we all gave a thumbs up to move forward. So that wasn't technically a vote. We were saying, yes, we agree with staff. And in that, I re-reviewed the information, and they did have in there information about involving the community. And I remember that was actually one of my questions I also asked. So I think maybe at the council retreat, I think we just talk about some of the inner workings of council and how things come to us and when we're actually voting to move forward versus when it's yes, we like that idea, continue working on it. That might be helpful as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. Anything else on December or kind of December 16th agenda? Okay. All right. And then we move into the December. So we've got the December 16th, and then we'll move into January 6th. And obviously we have the retreat on the Friday, the 19th. And as I say, we'll get that agenda out for everybody to take a look at. I think the rest of the agendas are pretty straightforward. Are there any questions or comments? Right now, we do have kind of a placeholder on the 13th, which is our work session to talk about the Fish Creek Water Filtration Plant, IGA. Know too that this can potentially be populated by a work session topic depending as a result of our council retreat. So I think the other thing would be if there are other outstanding issues that anybody would like to propose be a potential item for the work session, then bring those forth. But otherwise, we'll probably talk about it on the council retreat based upon what we set as our priorities and our goals and what staff can pull together in that time frame. Okay. Anything else? And then, as I say, then we've got the 20th, and again, everything's pretty straightforward at this point. Okay. If there's no other comments on the agendas, let's move on to Tom, if you want to provide the city manager report.
Great. Thank you, Councilor Gary. Just a reminder for the public that the city manager's report can be found on our main website, steamboatsprings.net. Just scroll down to spotlights and it's right there. You can find tonight's report as well as all previous reports. Starting off with the Deputy City Manager Department in Communications, there's a lot of good information on all the city's communication efforts and social media posts. Not surprising, you can see some of the top hits for Instagram were all those beautiful northern lights that we saw. Hopefully everybody got to see that. It was pretty spectacular. In the Facilities Department, as mentioned by Councilor Barnes, the Streets team along with Facilities facilitated the Santa's House with Main Street Steamboat here in the Civic Plaza. They did have the Light Up the Night event that happened over the Thanksgiving break. There was a great turnout, even though the weather was a little bit sketchy, but heard that there were a lot of people here and much appreciated by certainly all the families that participated. Moving on to programs and grants, information on all the grant applications as well as the grant awards the city's been working on and received in the last couple weeks. Waste diversion recycling, I wanted to note this. Staff is working with Apex and Lift Up to promote a food drive and free shopping at the Milner Mall. If folks want to shop for free at the Milner Mall, they need to make an appointment with Apex and bring any items on the list in the flyer that is attached to this report. Apex is offering a 1-for-1, meaning you bring 3 non-perishable items. You can select 3 items from the Milner Mall for free. This is meeting 2 needs, getting food to the food bank for people in need and clearing out the Milner Mall before the snow falls and ruins everything that's there. So all that stuff would just end up in the landfill. So it seems like a great event and just wanted to make the public aware of that. Again, you can find the information within this report on the attached flyer. Some updates with human resources. The HR and risk team is within the tail end of our annual performance management evaluation process, which is new with using Workday. It seems to be going very smoothly and efficiently. The team also helped facilitate our annual flu shot clinics for employees and immediate family members. There were 4 opportunities at different locations throughout October and November. And thank you always to the fire department's help to make these clinics a success. So this is an important and well-appreciated benefit that we provide city employees and their families. In the fire department, in October, I think this is important to note to remind folks of the amount of work that goes into sort of preparation. And October saw the start of what they call the annual hose testing. So every section of hose in the department owns was pressure tested and is pressure tested on an annual basis. They typically have a handful of those hoses that fail during the testing and is either removed from service or repaired. So this testing ensures the safety of their firefighters as well as the public when the hose is in use. So again, just a testament to the amount of work that goes in ahead of the time so that when an emergency happens, everyone's prepared and safe. The department also completed testing on all the dry hydrants within the district. So again, this is a reminder of they go well beyond the city limits to make sure that people have access to water. And they're producing a book that will be compiled with all of the hydrants, the exact location, the type of hydrant, and how much water is available at the site. And this will be available on all the apparatus to assist firefighters in knowing exactly where they can find water in the rural settings outside the pressurized water system. So in many cases, these are tanks that are filled by wells. Some are required based on the size of the house, but some also serve neighborhoods. So an important point of data for the fire department. A lot of information on the calls for service, which as you read, continues to rises over year and season over season. So they continue to be extremely busy, as well as an update on all the training activities that they're engaged in, which is extensive. The department also hosted a table at the Steamboat Springs High School Futures Fair. The event is focused on answering questions from students that may be interested in entering the field for emergency response, so doing some early recruitment, which is great. And their dedicated car seat specialists also helped install and educate members of the community on how to safely transport their kids. And I just bring these 2 things up because the outreach that the fire department does is a critical component of the service that they provide and really does provide a valuable service to the community to kind of educate them on safety, all things fire and emergency, and we appreciate all the efforts that they do to that. And then the last thing that I mentioned, the letter to the county for the letter of support. We will get that to you on the 16th. At your next meeting for your review and get that hopefully approved by you for a quick turnaround. I think the deadline was the 18th or 19th, so we'd have a day or 2 to have you review that and then get President Muntean's, I think he'll be back by then, signature at that point for that letter. So that's the timing on that. That's my report and happy to answer any questions.
What are the dates of the Apex Shop and Donate?
I think that's happening now.
This Monday.
It says
just
appointment Monday through Friday, 8 to 2. So you make an appointment with
It's-
Apex.
This Monday to Friday.
I believe that's,
Okay,
yeah, this week.
thanks.
And based on the weather forecast, better get out there because it's going to be covered in snow this weekend.
All right, other questions for Tom? Okay, all right. Well, again, just a big shout out to staff and to Tom. We certainly appreciate all of the information that's shared in the city manager reports. And just a reminder to anybody that's listening in, if you want to know what's going on with the city and staff behind the scenes, this is one of the ways to learn more about that. So with that, let's go ahead and move into our public comment period. So if there's anybody in the audience that would like to make a public comment on an item that's not on tonight's agenda, please come on down, state your name, and you have 3 minutes. And we will also ask anybody who is online, if you would like to make a public comment on an item that's not on tonight's agenda, please raise your hand and we'll call on you at the appropriate time.
Hello, my name is Bill Kruger. I live at 266 Blue Sage Circle. I've been here 38 years, 28 years in that house, and I'm here to talk about vacation rental at my house that I have. But I did talk to Apex last week, and their employees know nothing about it. Said, oh, it's probably in the spring. So.
Oh, well, thanks for that feedback.
Yeah,
Miscommunication there, clearly.
yeah, it may just be their employees. I don't know.
Right.
But my wife and I are retired, and well, we want to thank you for getting our license back because it was taken away from us for not renewing on time. But we don't, I'm here to talk about our situation. We started in 2019 renting out our lower level on the vacation home rental. We have 2 bedrooms down there and a family room, which our 3 kids aren't home, but they live in the Front Range. They do come up. But the 2 bedrooms offers a family of 2 or 2 couples to come and use the place. The current language in the STR is that we can't be there when we rent that out. And if it's a hosted rental, we can only do 1 bedroom. So it was from the start, we didn't fit in anywhere. And I'd like to see that changed at some point. You know, I've gone through, in fact, I have copies of Steamboat, Aspen Vale, Bozeman, Silverthorne, Telluride. They don't restrict owner-occupied rentals. Aspen has a special category for owner-occupied units, and they sometimes limit how many days you can do it, but no one really restricts to 1 bedroom instead of 2 bedrooms. They restrict how many people can be in a bedroom and things like that. But I would like to see something come up that would help us fit into the language that that can be changed by you guys. I know it seems like a minor thing for you guys with all the other bigger issues they have to do, but you know, us STR people are still, we count on that for our retirement. You know, these people that stay in our rental, they can't cook there. You know, we don't allow them to do that, but you know, they go to restaurants. They, you know, use other things around the town. So, so please give it some consideration. You can always get a hold of me, and I'll probably be back. Thank you.
All right.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Mr. Kruger. All right. Is there anyone online that would like to make a public comment? If so, please raise your hand. Okay. All right. We're not seeing, oh, there is one hand. All right. Walter, would you like to unmute, state your name, and you have 3 minutes?
Thank you. Good evening, council. I was having a hard time. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, so welcome new council members. Welcome to winter. Glad things are kicking off a little bit here. A few comments tonight across the board here, but brought it up previously, maybe it was a while ago, but I think that I saw in the budget 2 new police officers were added. And I think that I can do it through a request for records, but I think it's more a community item to have a police call map generated from GIS for the public to take a look at. I don't know if this has to be confidential information, but if we're hiring more police officers, we either have a crime problem or we're trying to solve another problem in my mind. And I didn't sit through the budget meeting like you all have, but I think that a location map of where the crime is and where the police calls are would be something informative for the community. Have another issue. I work a lot with planning staff and public works staff, and I'd like to see the city policy on emails upheld with responsiveness. I go several 72 hours, 96, 5 days, 6 days without getting any response from if people are out of office or people just don't respond. And, maybe there's too many questions and they don't want to be bothered, but they are working as public servants, and I think they owe it to people to respond to their emails within 48 hours, I think is a policy I've heard in the past. I have an open records request too going on right now for the allowance for parking on Sunlight Drive, which allows for overnight parking for, I guess, Sunlight Apartments over there, because we don't know how many people are living in those units, and they have overflow parking that's going to be in the public right away all winter, which isn't something anywhere else in the community that's allowed without getting ticketed. To end on a high note, though, it's Ski Free Sundays begins Sunday, and Rotary's hosting a Christmas party down there, which the city is helping with as well. That was probably in Tom's report, but it's a good thing. Looks like we'll get a little bit of ski runs open by then or be in a snowstorm. So that's all I got tonight. Thanks for your time, and have a good week.
Thanks, Walter.
All right, thank you, Walter, and thanks for bringing that up about the Rotary holiday party at Hallison. I think, is it like starts at 3 o'clock? Maybe we can get some details on that, so I'm sure that there'll be a PIO about that, right? In terms of communications.
Yeah, there'll be some social media posts as well as the rec roundup. So the information will be getting out to the community.
And I jumped ahead. Is there anybody else online that would like to make a public comment? Okay. All right. We are not seeing anyone else online or anybody else in the audience that would like to make a public comment. So we'll close the public comment period. And again, just to reiterate, we heard a comment about VHRs and having a hosted versus non-hosted VHR, and I guess, and the rules around that. And then obviously a question about the increase in police officers and a request to look at what's behind that, and potentially a location map of calls, as well as a question about what kind of, if there's any sort of rules or basic rules around responsiveness for staff emails, and then a question about the parking on Sunlight Drive. So those were the comments that we heard.
Tom, could you provide us context on why 2 additional police officers are needed?
Well, sure. As Chief Beckett explained during the budget process, there's a couple things happening. One, policing in the city is changing significantly, and the crimes that they're dealing with are more severe crimes than there have been in the past. Call rates are up, and they have been short-staffed in terms of being able to meet all of the patrols, and lots of overtime as a result of not having that adequate staff. They actually requested 4 police officers, and the recommendation was 2, just because we needed to balance that with other requests within the city as well. So they have a strategic plan that calls for a certain level of growth for the number of officers to continue to be able to provide the services to the city that they need. We were not able to give them the 4 officers, but 2 officers was certainly much appreciated and will help them meet those service levels. So,
Thanks.
All right. Any other comments?
Tom, could you just have someone circle back with Walter regarding, responsiveness, just to make sure we get an understanding of his concerns?
You bet.
I also would like to thank staff for juggling everything you juggle. Also, can we ask Jason to please respond, let us know what's going on with the parking at Sunlight or the housing authority generally?
Who's our committee members? Steve and,
Dakota. So, yeah.
This is just one of those things that we had talked about when we get a public comment about the housing authority. It's not us, but we need to know what's going on. And I thought we had a communication chain with them.
No, we do. And I wrote it down and I will pass that on to them and ask them for a response.
Thanks.
Okay. And so you'll get back to us in terms of clarity on what
Yeah,
the
most likely
ruler.
what will happen is they will provide a response to you. But we'll forward it on to them so that you can see and hear the response, and we'll forward it on to the board as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Anything else? Okay, let's go ahead and move into our, there's no community report tonight, so we'll move into the consent calendar, motions, resolutions, and ordinance. First readings. Items on the consent calendar may be reviewed and commented upon in the same manner as other agenda items. Any member of the council or public may request withdrawal of any item from the consent calendar for further discussion at any time prior to approval. If the items are not removed, they may be approved with a single motion. So agenda item 4 is the first reading of an ordinance amending Chapter 26 of the Steamboat Springs Revised Municipal Code by amending sections 200.f.2, Table 300-1, Table 300-2, 302I7, 306.c.7, 402.c.2, 403.c.3, 405.d.3, small d, 406.c.1, A through F, 406.d.4, 409.c.2, 411.c.5, 415.c.1, 702.a.11, and 802 to define and regulate electric vehicles charging projects, clarifying permitted locations, exemptions, and standards, PL 202-50282. Is there anybody on council? Woo, right?
Can you repeat that?
Repeat that? Sure. Woo. Did anybody double check me that I got it right? So is there anybody on council that would like to pull this for a presentation or discussion? Is there anybody either in the audience or online who would like to pull this for a presentation and discussion? All right, not seeing anyone requesting that this be removed from the consent calendar, it will stay on the consent calendar. We also have agenda item 5, which is the first reading of the 6th supplemental budget appropriation ordinance of 2025. Would anyone like to pull this on council or?
I was going to pull for just a super quick.
Okay. All right. So we will pull agenda item 5 from the consent calendar. We also have the first reading of the ordinance of the first supplemental budget appropriation ordinance of 2026. Is there anybody that on council that would like to pull that item or anybody in the audience? Okay. With that, I will then take a motion to approve agenda item 4 and agenda item 6 on the consent calendar.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Councilor Ricino. We have a second by Councilor Swintek. Is there, all those in favor say aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Okay. All right, with that, let's move on to agenda item 5, which is the 6th supplemental budget appropriation ordinance of 2025.
Good evening, Council. Kim Weber, Finance Director. So this is the last supplemental budget appropriation for 2025. You'll see technically we only appropriate the expenditures, but we have offsetting revenue on all of the items except for one, which was the SGR study that we got council thumbs up before we moved forward with that. So this is just following that up. And then a little bit of difference, the wildland fire and fire suppression deployment overtime. In the regular budget, we appropriate some of that. We estimate that there might be X number of deployments. we budget for the wildland firefighters and the revenue that comes in. What we don't budget for is the additional overtime that's needed from the full-time firefighters to cover that. However, we also get reimbursement for that. So this actually shows more revenue than expenses. So the supplemental, we're actually planning on bringing in more revenue, but it is an appropriation for an additional $244,494 in expenses.
All right, thank you, Kim. Questions for Kim?
No specific. I figured it was our last supplemental for 2025 and just wanted to pull it. And thank you for that explanation about the budgeting for the wildland firefighters. That was really helpful.
Oh, good.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, additional questions? All right, let's go ahead and open it up to public comment. If there's anyone in the audience that would like to make a public comment, or if there's anybody online that would like to make a public comment, please raise your hand. All right, we're not seeing anybody either raising their hand or coming down front to make a public comment, so I'll bring it back to council for discussion or a motion.
Motion to approve.
Again,
Okay, we've got a motion by Counselor Dixon. We have a second by Counselor Swintek to approve agenda item 5. Again, any additional discussion? All those, I'll call the question then. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Okay, that passes unanimously. All right, we'll move on to H, our public hearings, motions, resolutions, and ordinances. So we have agenda item 7, which is an ordinance levying a property tax for the purpose of funding fire and emergency medical services. Dan, would you like to walk us through this?
Just briefly, this is the property tax that the city voters approved in 2019. We have to certify the amount of the mill levy to the county every year. Arguably, we have to do that by ordinance every year. I think probably not, but rather than invite any kind of controversy, we just do this annually so that Kim has clear authority to certify the mill levy to the county.
Okay, questions for Dan? Okay, all right, well, we'll open it up to public comment. Is there anybody in the audience or anybody online that would like to make a public comment on our agenda item 7, an ordinance levying a property tax for the purpose of funding fire and emergency medical services? Okay, we're not seeing anyone that's interested in making public comment, so we'll close public comment and I'll bring it back to council for either a discussion or a motion.
move to approve.
Okay, we've got a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
We've got a motion by Counselor Swintek. We have a second by Counselor Dixon. Again, any discussion? If not, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, that passes unanimously. So we will move on to our agenda item 8, which is the second reading of an ordinance extending the waiver of temporary storage requirements of the Community Development Code in connection with the relocation of a historic structure known as the Marshall House. Caitlin, would you like to give us a quick overview?
Very briefly, good evening, councilors. Caitlin Barabee Smith, Historic Preservation Planner. I think we had a nice discussion with some public comment on this for the first reading. Again, initially, we had ordinance 2973 pass on August 6th, 2024. This is an extension of that to waive provisions of the Community Development Code to allow for the continued temporary storage of the historic Marshall House. As stated prior, Section 300 of our Community Development Code would allow for a more lengthy process and an additional temporary use approval. So this will provide us the ability to continue to store the Marshall House temporarily until final placement until December 31st, 2026. There will be an additional agreement between the city and the owners required, Overlook Development, which would require them to receive building permit approval by June 30th, 2026.
Okay, are there any questions? Okay, not seeing any questions. We'll go ahead and open it up to public comment. If there's anybody online that would like to make a public comment on our agenda item number 8, please raise your hand. Okay, we're not seeing anybody online that would like to make a public comment, so I'll bring it back to council for either a discussion or a motion.
I would just like to say thank you to Caitlin for the information we received at the last meeting. So that's why I have no questions or comments. You did a great job at our last council meeting, so thank you.
Okay,
With that, I'll make a motion unless someone, okay, motion to approve.
all right, we've got a motion to approve agenda item 8 by Counselor Dixon, and I think that was a second by Counselor Swintek. So again, unless there's further discussion, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Okay, that passes unanimously. Moving right along. Dan, do you have a city attorney report?
There is no written report, but I would like to mention that Councilor Dixon brought to my attention that there's an invite from, I believe it's the Chamber, to an event at the Mountain regarding development at the Mountain. And most of the projects that are going to be the subject of that discussion have already been approved by you, and we don't have any reason to think that they're coming back. However, there is a Ski Time Square project that is on your agenda for the 16th, and I don't know what this presentation is going to be like, but if there are any details about that project, it would really not be a good idea for you to be there receiving that information, particularly as I understand this event is not open to the public. So I'm not saying don't go, but if you want to go, give me a call because I think we should discuss it.
So if they bring it up, just run out of the room. I can't be there. But otherwise, go to the meetings.
Oh, have fun.
Actually, you can do this too.
Yeah, you just go like this.
Yeah,
What are you doing, Mr. Pacino? Nothing?
I'm not going to go. I just worry that the particular property was identified in their invite. That's on our agenda, whatever date that was.
1830 Ski Time Square.
Thank you. Yeah.
Right.
So I'm not going to go. I don't want to potentially have the conversation, talk about all the property. So I'm not going. I would love to, but I'm not going to.
Yeah, I think that's wise.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Any other questions for Dan? Okay. No old minutes or no old business, no minutes to approve. So I will then kick over our next item, agenda item 11 to Dan.
So we put this on with the thinking that we might want to discuss negotiations with the council. But at this time, there's no need to do that. So unless there is a burning desire to ask me questions, this item doesn't need to be heard tonight.
Mhm. And this is the item pertaining to a pending employment claim. So again, if there's any questions. Okay. All right. Seeing none, I think we're ready to adjourn.
So we're moving to strike the executive session. Correct.
You're just taking no action on it.
Taking no action. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you. So we'll take no action on the executive session. So I would then entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All right. We have a motion by
Late
Counselor
by
Swintek, a
minutes.
second by Counselor Pacino. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. So it's 6:20 and we are
Record.
adjourning. All right. Thank you.
Never-